Hello, welcome to James's pre-fight, post-fight MMA show, where we recap all the important things happening in the sport of MMA, and I, your host James, try to explain to you what's going on in the sport and make it as easy as 1, 2, 3 for you to understand. We hope you enjoy the show.
So moving into the co-main event, finally, I believe me and Mike have some difference when it comes to this fight. We're gonna have, and I'm actually very excited for it, and I think it's very intriguing for the what some people believe is the most stacked division and with one of the most prestigious belts in the UFC. If it's not, then the main event belt on the line is Aljamain Sterling, the current UFC bantamweight champion, versus the number 2 contender, the former champion TJ Dillashaw. Aljamain Sterling's 21-3. He is 5'7", 71-inch reach, so he will have a reach advantage over Dillashaw, and he is 33 years old. TJ Dillashaw is 18-4. He's 5'6". He has a 67-inch reach, and I believe he is 36 years old. So he is older. Things to keep in mind. Aljamain Sterling, basically when TJ tested positive for EPO and he had to leave he was suspended from 2018 to 2020. Aljamain Sterling's career was basically made in that whole little time. He's on a good win streak. He beat Jim Rivera, Pedro Munoz, Corey Sandhagen, and then Piotr Jan twice. Obviously, everybody makes fun of him for the first fight where he got one via disqualification. Not his fault. I don't blame him for that one. And then he wrote that wrong. He got that wrong out of the way by beating Piotr in a very close fight in the second one. And TJ Dillashaw, he was the champ. He was riding high with those wins over Cody Garbrandt. And we've seen a trend with him that these guys who seem kind of on a high, he does beat them, like Tanner Barao and Cody Garbrandt. And then he tries to go back down. He tries to go down 125 pounds, loses via TKO to Henry Cejudo very quickly in 40 seconds. Then he tests positive for EPO. He's off for 2 years. He has a very close fight in a war against Corey Sandhagen, where you saw his gutsiness and his resources be used in that fight. So it's very interesting. Two of them are kind of somewhat similar backgrounds. Obviously, Sterling is more of a grappler. TJ Dillashaw does have grappling, but he's more of a striker first. So, Mike, what did you see when it came to this fight between Dillashaw and Aljamain Sterling?
Yeah, well, the first important thing to me here is the storyline of the fight. I mean, as the champion, Sterling's favored to win. He's about 160-point favorite in that range. So slight favorite.
Slight favor, yeah.
I think it's really about the fans in this fight because, and I know you just kind of exonerated him, but a lot of people are not a fan of Sterling. They're disappointed about the whole Jan DQ in the Sandhagen fight. And there's a lot of guys who
he takes out the fan favorites a little bit.
Yeah, and he's kind of stepped on a lot of toes. What I also worry about in this fight is Dillashaw's health. And we don't really know in full. We know in the last 2 years and whatnot, he's really been dealing with injuries. He's spent a lot of time off. And we know how good TJ Dillashaw can be. But I just worry about
the age, the layoff, right?
Yeah, where he's at. And they wouldn't be putting him in a championship fight. Understand, like he's obviously ready to go, and a lot of people believe in him and think he has a chance to win this fight. But you never know in a fight like this what can happen, like re-aggravation of something. I kind of see this going in another kind of way where people question the legitimacy of Sterling's win. Like I feel like
it's something like so quick.
Something's gonna happen. Something's gonna happen in this fight, just because the way Sterling's career is gone. Something's gonna happen in this fight that people are gonna be unhappy. And it's just how I feel. I hate to be a pessimist. I want to see a good fight. Um, but I don't think it's going to be the prettiest fight as well. I think, and even if nothing bad happens, no injuries or no, accidental, no late round, groin strike or something that gives an advantage. Like outside of that kind of thinking, like I could see Sterling winning this fight kind of slow and steady and kind of like like Izzy's been doing, and everyone's like, well, everyone's criticizing him like, oh, he's not being
Yeah, he like
entertaining
stays on the
enough.
outside all the time.
Right, like he's not being entertaining enough. He's not going for it all. And I can kind of maybe see the fight going this way, and I see Sterling winning this fight by decision.
Okay. So when my this is why I like for the audience, this is why I like having Mike on, because when I used to do these by myself, I used to kind of get in my head and I used to like give in to all these narratives and stuff, and then I used to get confused. But I said, Mike, you just laid out a very good narrative of why the storylines we put out could affect the fight. Um, so when the fight was first announced, I thought Aljamain Sterling should probably win because, like you said, he is the younger guy. He's the more active guy. TJ Dillashaw, he after the Sandhagen fight, which I thought he looked very good in, injured. He had to get his ACL repaired, and now he's coming back. And then plus, it's probably going to be a fight where he's going to have to wrestle a lot, and it's hard to do with a new knee. So we'll see what happens with him with the knee and everything. But when it comes to if he's right and he's fully ready to go, because a lot of people always like to point out, like, oh, against Sandhagen, it was so close. And Aljo, he submitted him in like a minute. But Sandhagen's a different guy to Aljamain Sterling. Like, like you've seen Aljo strike. Like, it's serviceable. It's not terrible. It's pretty good. But it's not like Sandhagen, Dillashaw obviously had trouble there with the range of Sandhagen, but Sterling, he doesn't fight the same way. Also, Aljamain Sterling, he does like to give ground. He likes to move back a lot. I think that's going to be a huge mistake. Again, that could be a huge mistake against TJ Dillashaw. For me, and also, we always talk about Aljamain Sterling. He's a wrestler, D3 All American. But on paper, Dillashaw is the better wrestler. D1 D1 finalist, and then plus in MMA, I believe he is the better wrestler. Like you'll see him mix up the strikes with the wrestling better, and he's a more accurate takedown artist. And that's why I'm not gonna. That's why I enjoy having Mike here. I am going to tentatively lean towards Dillashaw just a little bit. I think that if he's ready to go and his injuries are okay, they don't have to be fully improved. I think that he wins this fight. Aljamain Sterling's takedown accuracy is 21%, which even for the guy who wrestles a lot, that's very, very low. Usually wrestlers are like 30, 40%. He's just extremely low. Like he went through a whole streak where he couldn't score a takedown and he had to use his striking. TJ Dillashaw, his takedown defense is 86%. That is extremely high for the UFC. So that's what I think. I think Aljo's best chance would be if he somehow got TJ frustrated in the lead up to this fight. TJ Dillashaw rushes him and then he changes levels and gets him down. That's probably his number one way to get this win, in my opinion. Or, and I think this is probably more likely because TJ's been saying that his striking is a lot better. Sterling's been saying that he's going to prove his is better. I think he's just going to go out there. He's going to try to put hands on him, which he's got to be careful because we saw against Jan, he got very, very tired. And Dillashaw has better cardio than Sterling. I can see him even pushing him up against the fence and just wiping him out, like in terms of like points. So that's why I'm going to lean a little bit towards the former champion. But so you think Sterling by decision, right?
Yeah, I think barring some sort of freak, incident, which I hope doesn't
I understand.
happen.
I know what you mean. You're trying to just go by
But
what's on tape.
I think, yeah, I think Sterling will win this fight, and I think it's going to be a lot of on the mat action, and I think it's going to be just kind of a slow, steady fight. It's going to go. I think Dillashaw is ready, and I think he'll hold up. It's just I just see the fight going in Sterling's direction.
Oh, all right. So Mike has Aljamain Sterling via decision. I am leaning towards TJ Dillashaw. I want to say I could see him getting a late finish. Actually, my whole thing is I think he's gonna punch Aljamain Sterling's body a lot. That's kind
Yeah.
of because we remember the Jan fight, the first fight. He was getting very tired, and but I think Dillashaw via decision. I think these two guys. I think Sterling. He's too on his game to get finished, and of course, like you said, that's my biggest worry though for the challenger is his health. His body and his age. Obviously, if this was prime Dillashaw, like at his peak, I would 100% pick him. What do you think if it was his prime, his peak him?
I think that's the thing. Like I said, Dillashaw's been through so much in the past couple of years, and it's hard to
Yeah, it's hard to
it's
be
hard to
trustworthy of it.
right. Like it's hard. Like and given how good we know he can be, he's getting the respect he deserves. Like you see it in the betting odds. Like no one's sitting here saying Sterling has an easy win ahead of, and I
Yeah.
don't believe that. I just think that Sterling's going to do a great job of protecting himself. I think he's going to stay away from Dillashaw. He's not going to let him. He's not going to let him bully him.
Hmm.
He's not going to let him come out and overwhelm him with strikes. He's going to be on his game. He's going to avoid the big shots. And I think he'll get him down. And like I said, it'll be a slow, tedious fight. And I think Sterling will eke it out.
Oh, so there you guys have a co-main event. Mike has Aljamain Sterling via decision. I have TJ Dillashaw via decision. Hopefully, I think, in my opinion, it's going to be an interesting fight. But hopefully for everybody, it will be an interesting fight. So, excuse me. Moving on to the crown jewel of this main event. This fight, we've all been arguing about it. Me and Mike, we're friends with a certain young man who has the origins of Montenegro, who disagrees with us a little bit on this. Shout out to Elvir. Just revealed it already. We have the main event, the UFC lightweight titles on the line, probably the most stacked division in the UFC, in my opinion. Charles Oliveira, the former champion, but he lost his title by 0.5 pounds in his last fight against, but he did win the fight. So he's technically the former champion, 33-8, but everybody looks at him as the champion, excuse me. Most of the contenders, anyways. 10 with a 74-inch reach. He will have a reach advantage over Makachev. He is 32 years old. Islam Makachev, 22-1, so only one loss in his whole career. 5'10", with a 70-inch reach. He is 30 years old. And, Charles Oliveira, he does have the record for most finishes, most submissions, and I believe he's coming close to most wins in the UFC. And then Islam Makachev, he has the record in this division for most, least strikes landed on him. There is a difference between, and I think Mike will cover this as well. We both are kind of little bit on the fence. We're not sure still. I'm sure Mike has a pick. There's a big difference between competition between the two of them. Charles Oliveira is coming on an 11-fight win streak. His last 5 wins: Kevin Lee, Tony Ferguson, Michael Chandler, Dustin Poirier, and Justin Gaethje. And then you have Islam Makachev. He's on a 10-fight win streak. His last 5 wins is Davi Ramos, Drew Dober, Thiago Moises, Dan Hooker, and Bobby Green. The last 2 the opponent coming on short notice. So, Mike, I like. When I brought this to you, this fight, I was intrigued because you know me, I try to go into the technical bits. But I'm very curious to see what you think because we have Oliveira. A lot of people are saying that the only reason he is good is because of his confidence, which I highly disagree with. I think it actually has a lot to do with his actual skill level. And in Islam Makachev, I believe he is the one who his best asset in this fight is the confidence because he only lost 1 time. And, he has changed his game a bit since then. So I'm wondering what you think coming into this fight between two guys who are coming off of very heavy win streaks?
Yeah, well, Makachev is the favorite in this fight, about 170 points. Favorite. And it seems like everyone's kind of, Khabib's behind him, and he's got all the, the hype behind him, and kind of like it seems like this is his fight to win. But I think there's question marks. Like,
Absolutely.
Like who has Makachev beaten so far? Right, the quality of competition. Not that he, but as we know, Oliveira is like, and we've seen in the other fights, the differences in experience. Like Oliveira obviously has so many wins, so many big pay-per-view fights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's been in the UFC since he was like 20, I think. It's crazy.
Right. And in the case of Makachev, is he being pushed too quick? How much, can he be doing more? And we see it historically, right? Like you see championship fights made with these imbalances, they do happen, right? And it leads to
imbalances in the fight, yeah.
Right, and it in terms of the the record and history of the fighters. So it's just a question mark. Like, is Makachev ready for a fight like this? And it's the same question we saw in O'Malley, and Gamrot, where it's this is a massive card and massive pressure, and the stakes are so high. And I don't think like Makachev is in a position to crumble, because I think he's too good to crumble.
Yeah, those guys, they just seem so cold, right? Like they have no emotion coming in there.
Right, like he's a bred warrior, he's a bred fighter. I don't think he's gonna crumble by any means. But in this fight, defense is gonna be key. And it almost seems like to me that this fight is destined to end via submission.
On either end, right?
And it's hard to imagine either of these competitors tapping out or tapping the other one out. It's just something that's kind of unthinkable. And it's hard to envision how this one plays out. So it becomes kind of like this whole. It becomes very unpredictable. And I think Oliveira has a lot on his shoulders right now because of the situation that happened with him, in regards to weight.
Yeah.
He really needs to come out and win this fight. And this is another dynamic of someone who's been the top dog on the block, face some challenges, face some trials and tribulations, and needs to prove they're still at the top. And late in the fight, no matter how ruthless, how relentless, how ready Makachev is, I see Oliveira rising to the occasion. I think he's going to find a way to catch Makachev slipping. And as much as I can't picture it happening,
yeah, same.
It's just so hard for me to think of it. And I'm trying right now in my head to envision this. And that's why I'm so excited for this fight, because I can't picture anyone losing this fight. But I just know it's going to happen. Someone's going to get a finish in this fight. And I think Oliveira's going to do it by submission. Late in the fight, somewhere in the fourth round, these guys are going to be sweating all over each other, giving it their all. And he's going to catch them, and he's going to silence a lot of critics, a lot of doubters. And I think the Makachev train's going to slow down a little bit here. But by any means, you won't be seeing the last.
So I like where your head was at, right? Like with the whole, this guy is a little unproven, and I think you were saying like how it's hard to imagine Makachev losing, right? It's easy. I remember you and I were kind of talking about this earlier, and then you were saying like, I'm thinking about Charles Oliveira, But then you're like, but I would be shocked if Oliveira won, even though you picked him. And I just think but then you gave very good reasons, right? That Makachev, like, it's the competition's very low. Charles Oliveira has one of the best resumes in the UFC right now. So you have like an A plus versus like a D minus almost, and in that trend. And then you have that, he's fought fire. He's in the title fights. Makachev hasn't been in a title fight. I would add in that Charles Oliveira's MMA game is better than Islam Makachev. Like, Makachev's striking is decent. It's kind of like I said about Sterling. His striking is serviceable, good, but Dillashaw's striking is just, it flows more. There's more going on. I would say something similar between these two. I think, and then plus, like, of course, there's the grappling, and Makachev, he could be better than Charles Oliveira on the ground, but also he could be worse than him on the ground. Like, he's not Khabib. We all have to remember that. And then plus, like, we have, like, he went 4 rounds with Thiago Moises until he got the finish. Like, it took a while. And then even he got taken down in that fight too, and he got his back taken. So,
like, it's tough to say with the technical stuff because Charles Oliveira, I think there is a way for him to win. It would be that Islam Makachev, he does believe in his striking a lot, so he does move back a lot more than Khabib, and that could end up being a detriment to him. I don't think his team understands that. A big part of Khabib's success was that he used to move forward and almost recklessly, but he had that great chin, he had the great durability, and of course the fear of the takedown. And I don't think his team understands that was a part of the success of Khabib. And Islam Makachev, I do think he's gonna feel like, oh, I can stand. I'll wait for my right moment. I'll be patient, like Mike said. And I think Charles Oliveira, he's got to be patient with how he gets the finish, inch by inch, make him uncomfortable, throw little shots, and then boom, when Makachev commits to a punch or a takedown, that's when he cracks him. For Makachev, I think really his key is where he takes him down. Where in the octagon, up against the fence would be best because one thing I think people are getting confused by is how Khabib and Makachev, they come from that school of Sambo. So a lot of people think that Sambo is like, oh, it's not jiu-jitsu. It is jiu-jitsu. It's just a different type of attitude to it. Most grappling is very similar. Most striking is very similar. And the reason why Khabib has such success in neutralizing the grappling, granted, they weren't as good as Charles Oliveira, not by any stretch of the imagination, is because he took him down against the fence. And Makachev, he could do that. I've seen him do it, but he doesn't usually do it. The reason why his ground and pound is not as good as Khabib is because he does take people down on the open more often than not. So that's why I believe his best way to victory. It really all depends on Charles Oliveira. I always tell people that it's really up to him. He is such a well-rounded fighter. It is up to him. For me, if I was his team, I would tell him you got to at least fight the takedown. You have to stop the takedown, but you have to fight the takedown. I don't want it to be like his legs getting touched and he just falls down and tries to play guard. I do think there has to be some level of urgency because if he just decides to play guard with Makachev and not fight the takedown, he doesn't have to stop it, but just fight it. Then you're allowing Makachev to be comfortable. That's why I think he's got to make him uncomfortable. Fight the takedown. Make him burn some energy. If you get taken down, that's when you use the guard. And Makachev, he's so good at that southpaw lefty stance where he does have a great left hand. He is underrated, in my opinion, when it comes to his counterboxing. His wrestling is very, very good. He does like to wrestle where he comes up to the body, like he'll shoot a double leg, a single leg, and it comes to the body. And then that's where he does his takedowns. But then the problem becomes is like Charles Oliveira, he is very, very good at strikes in the clinch, submissions in the clinch. Makachev, he may find himself in trouble there. If he comes to the clinch, he may start eating knees to the body, elbows to the head, knees to the head. And then he's going to start to backpedal, and that can make him uncomfortable. That's the main thing I'm kind of interested in. I want to see what happens when Islam Makachev is uncomfortable, especially on the stand-up, especially if he's on his back. That's what I kind of want to see. I'm not sure. That's the strategy I lay out for both guys. I think Makachev, it will probably have to be up against the fence, takedowns, wear on Charles Oliveira, just be the more efficient grappler. If it's Charles Oliveira, I think he just has to at least fight the takedown. Not even defend it, just fight it. and let him know that there's going to be resistance coming everywhere, and that this level of fighter is a different level to the other levels of fighters that he's fought before. This Makachev, he's so good. Like he's gone the distance a couple times, but he's so good at when it's at his pace. I do admire his patience. Not a lot of MMA wrestlers are like that, but that's why I see in that's why I see Charles Oliveira has to worry about in this fight. I think he has to be the guy making Makachev uncomfortable. Just at least show something different from his other opponents, because Makachev, when it's his game, and of course Charles Oliveira, he could get a stoppage, he could get a sub whenever, but I would just try to make Makachev uncomfortable because if he starts moving forward, he starts is faking his level changes into his kicks. He's a very good left southpaw left kick or his left hand, then it becomes very tough. And especially when you're just letting him do everything he wants, right? That's kind of like what most of his opponents happen to them. They kind of freeze up a little bit, and then of course, they're known for the Dagestani handcuff, where they do triangle their legs. They pin them against the fence. They start punching them, and the guard becomes somewhat useless because MMA fighters now they try to use the fence to get up, so they're kind of stuck in the middle. And that's why I think Oliveira, it's best if he moves forward, because even if he gets taken down, he'll be in the open mat. That's what I think. Very, very tough fight. It's tough to tell. Like I say of every Charles Oliveira fight, it's really up to his mindset, in my opinion. His mindset and his fight IQ. That's my worry. I think that with this fight, he may think, "Oh, I'm so good on the ground. I'm so good with my stoppage wins that I trust my laurels." I would absolutely say no. This is you want to make sure that you don't have. If you start getting taken down, you start getting hit, then it's fine, right? You're the more experienced guy, but don't let it happen. Resist. That's the big part of this fight because Makachev, we haven't seen anybody do that yet. So that is that's the technical breakdown in my opinion of this fight. But especially with Makachev, such a MMA game when it comes to how it relates to Khabib, with him having more submission wins than Khabib having more ground and pound. That's the thing I find fascinating. He is more willing to jump on the back, things like that. So it should create an interesting dynamic between the two when it comes to the technical ability.
It's tough to say. Like, I think what you are saying, the reason why it's so hard to imagine Charles Oliveira winning is because even though we don't know Makachev could do this, we also know that we don't know if he can't do this, right? Like, it hasn't been proven that he isn't that guy yet. Would you say that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it would just stark contrast, and it's kind of like, well, I need to see it to believe it,
like if it happens, it's gonna be like a moment everybody remembers for a very
yeah,
long time.
He hasn't made his wow moment yet.
Yeah,
Makachev, and he needs to, and this would be it, right? This is
yeah.
but
But like you said, usually it happens a little bit before the title shot.
right. That's what I'm saying. Like it just seems like he's kind of just thrown into this fight, and I mean, maybe he rise to the occasion, and he right. It could be even. It's kind of like, all right, we're trying to make him the chosen one here, but and once he does it, it's if he wins this fight, obviously it's all his, all the glory.
Turns out it was always like that.
He's just got to do it first, right? So it's like you haven't to be the champ, you got to beat the champ, and and obviously that's a self-explanatory expression, but I don't think anyone's crazy for doubting him in this fight. Like,
yeah, well, some people are like, because obviously we know Khabib has a lot of fans, very strong, opinionated fans, and they're like, you bring up all these great points, Mike, and then they'll just say to you, oh, but Khabib said that he definitely beats him. Like, oh yeah, he trains the guy. I would hope he would say he beats him. So he gets that rub.
Yeah, I mean, look, you got to go in confident. The fighter himself, the team, who's ever backing him, you got to be confident, and confidence ain't a problem. But like I said, confidence doesn't matter if you don't win the fight. But and like I said as well, like this isn't the last we're going to be seeing of Makachev. If he loses the fight, by no means the end of his career. It's the same, and this is it's a dynamic of 3 out of the 4 fights we covered, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically just, old dog versus the new dog, and who's going to rise to the top.
Mm-hmm.
And it's good dynamics, and I said I'm ready for it. I can't wait.
So, it's a great fight. We're going to wrap up the show. It's very, very long, this one. We're probably going to split this into 2 parts, I believe. And then I believe that perhaps Mike and I, we may make a short 15-second video where we'll give our picks a little bit for the prelims. So thank you guys for listening. It should be a great night of fights. Or for us on the East Coast, great afternoon of fights. It starts at 2 p.m., I believe, the main card, or 3 p.m. Thank you guys for listening. We hope you enjoyed the show, the video, the podcast, because we enjoyed making it. Please like, comment, and subscribe to the show. Please follow us on all of our podcasting platforms. We have it on Apple, Google, Spotify. It's going to be in the link. It's going to be the link in the description below. It really helps our show if we could get our subscriber rate up for at least one of the podcast platforms and our YouTube channel. So thank you all for listening. And Mike, we are out.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to the podcast. If you like what you were listening to, please subscribe to Fans Assemble. And if you can, please give us a rating. Do it for the audio world. They need you.